Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 13 of Robbie's Backstage Bants. And today I am chatting with the legendary Glenn Carter, who most of you will know as Jesus from the Jesus Christ Superstar film released in the year 2000. So welcome, Glenn.
Thank you. I'm not really. I'm good job. I'm not superstitious. Episode 13 and all of that.
Oh, I know. Good
At
job
least
it's
it's
not
not
Friday.
Friday.
Yeah. It's a good job.
How are
How
you,
are you
mate?
doing? I'm all right. How are
All
you?
right. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm still in my working clothes. I've been, as I was saying, I'm building a barge, building a boat. You know, a huge big thing. It's been a project of mine for
Awesome.
years. I've just finished. Hence
Oh,
me
wow.
being a bit of a mess. So apologies for that.
That's not at all. So the plan for
I
today,
haven't got
the
my
first.
hair done.
Oh,
I
you
haven't got
haven't.
makeup
He's
on.
not. He's not there with that, but he is building a barge, so we'll have to let him off. So the first actually questions I've got for you today is how you got into the business. So my first question is, what is the journey of how you got to where you are today?
Wow. I think it's fair to say I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what I was going to do. You know, I was from a a small town, you know, up in the north and Midlands, then in the north, and I just hadn't. I mean, I had a very strange childhood to be honest. I was assessed on like an IQ level, and I was put into an experimental system, and the system failed. So I went through school learning a language that was sounded like English, you know, and I had a large vocabulary, and I was, I was
Yeah.
in the top of that. And then when the system failed, I wasn't retrained. So I went from being, smart to then literally couldn't read the English language. I could speak the English language. So
Yeah.
people thought I was being very difficult. They thought I was a difficult child, which I absolutely wasn't. And so I went through school quite troubled, really. Like it was
Yeah.
quite like it was a rough school. You know, my dad was posted. He worked for the RAF and the Ministry of Defence, and he was posted all over the place. So I didn't ever settle anywhere. You know, I went from 4 or 5
Yeah.
different places. You know, kid, from the age of like 7 till 16. We moved a lot. So I didn't really know what I wanted, what I could do, because I still couldn't read at like 16, 17, because people thought I was being difficult, because my father was posted from one Air Force base to another, and
Yeah.
I'd gone from this ITA, it's called ITA, the initial teaching alphabet, this experimental system which failed, and we were posted to another base, and I arrived at this, other base, and then for another school, and they had no idea what it was. So I spoke well, and they'd put words in front of me, and I go, I don't know what that
Yeah.
is. So they were all confused by me, and it was just, I had a weird childhood. So I left. I ran away from home. I just
All
left.
right.
I left, and I was homeless for a little while. So I just left. I had enough at sort of 16, 15, 16. I thought that, school wasn't going well for me, and I had a high IQ, and I just thought I'm just going to take control of it. And
Absolutely.
so I left home and walked away and ended up homeless for a few months.
Okay.
And I went from one thing to another. I ended up, you know, going. I still had some friends, and I went
Yeah.
to. They didn't know. I'd say, oh yeah, I'm going home, and I'd go sleep somewhere else, and
Oh.
a bit of a weird, but it was great for me. I had such a, it gave me a real sort of strength in me that nothing really phased me after that.
Yeah.
And so anyway, ended up working in a nightclub
Oh.
randomly. I won't bore you with all the details, but ended up working in a nightclub, and a couple of the guys I said, I can write you a comedy act. And so I started to, with them, work out weird little sketches. And so we had this bit of a cabaret act.
All right.
And then from that, we got an agent, and then the agent, offered me other work. He offered me work as a tour manager. So I ended up tour
Oh.
managing, and then I went from tour managing. So then I started off in management, and I worked in a pop music agency. I started to write music. I worked with Imagination, the fantastic 1980s pop group. I was like one of their assistants, and I worked
Wow.
with them on tour. And then I started writing. I was offered a record deal, and then I met a girl, just a friend, just a girl who was one of the dancers from a support act, and she said, you should go to arts educational schools, you should go to college, you know, you write, you sing a bit, you know, you should go and get trained. So I went, okay, I'll do that then. Literally, that was it. I just said, okay, I'll do that. And I wrote to arts educational schools and 2 or 3 other places just in case I didn't get into arts.
Yeah.
And I got in, so I went, and that was it. But I didn't know where I was going. I started on a journey,
Yeah.
and I had absolutely no clue where I was going, none at all.
No.
I just let it happen, really.
And then you got into how you are and everything you've done, which is incredible.
Yeah, it took a long time though. It wasn't an overnight anything. Do you know what I mean? It took a lot of years of, you know, I was very fortunate right at the beginning. You know, like people, I guess, will look at my CV and say, you know, he's done this, 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 and this. But a lot, I did so many shows where I was understudying, you know, and I'd go on as an understudy, and I was very useful as an understudy, and then they wouldn't ask me to take over the role because no, you know, he's great as an understudy. He doesn't push to go on. He's always there. I never didn't have a sick day. I don't think I had a sick day in the West End for 9 years, you know, so I was always there. It was just one of those things, you know, it was a long journey to actually get my first role that was mine, you know.
Absolutely. No. So now we're just going to get into a little chat about your career. Now I'm just going to list things off. I've got a few roles written down here, not everything, but there's a few things written down. The first one I want to start with is Macduff. This is something that not a lot of people really do Shakespeare, which is brilliant to see because I'm studying it now, and it's just fantastic. Like, how do you get that in your brain?
Well, to start with, when you're a novice, you know, when you haven't done it before, I'm trying to think. It was. I'm not superstitious, so I'm going to say Macbeth, right? So I was in Macbeth. So and Macduff is a character in Macbeth.
Yeah.
And I think I can't remember because I've done Macbeth, Hamlet, As You Like It, a few other Shakespeare plays, and I was always blessed to have it. I think the first Shakespeare play I got was directed by a lady called Glenn Walford, who was fantastic. She was fantastic. Even the audition, you know, arts. I had a really good Shakespeare teacher. In fact, I had 2 really good teachers. A guy called David Perry, who worked for the British Council, teaching Shakespeare, doing Shakespeare, directing Shakespeare, and Judith Windsor, who, you know, again is a fantastic acting coach. And so I felt fairly confident because, you know, I had Shakespeare speeches, etc., all put together. And I went into the audition with Glenn Walford, and she said, "Oh, forget the speeches. They're like, you can learn a speech. Anybody can learn a speech, and, you know, you're told to lift your eyebrow on that and move in this way." She just said, "I want you to play now. I don't care what words you use. I want you to play vulnerability, and I want you to just do me a made-up speech, a made-up scenario, and play vulnerability, and talk to me in a vulnerable. Tell me a story about when you were vulnerable, when you felt vulnerable, and I want to see your vulnerability." And then she'd say, "Now play rage. Now play in that, you know, I did that, and now play something." And so she actually asked me to act sort of thought process and emotions and stuff. She didn't ask me to technically deliver text because she knew that she could teach that. She could teach some, you know, rhythm and pitch, because Shakespeare is very much about rhythm, you know, speeding up and slowing down. And, you know, I was fortunate to work with Sir Peter Hall, and he has a very specific idea of how Shakespeare works. And he's written a fantastic book on that. But Glenn Walford had a slightly different way, but she was a fantastic director. She knew that she could tell me how she wanted it spoken. And so that's what she did. And because the one thing that people who study musical theatre have is a slight advantage when it comes to Shakespeare, because Shakespeare is music. It's rhythmical music and pitch music. It builds up and it ebbs and flows, and it's all about the spoken word. So she looked at, you know, my training, and then she saw that I could play various emotions, and then she did that. And once I'd done that with her, and I don't think I was particularly good at it, you know, I think I was learning. It was, you know, it's like I was my first thing. I was starting then. It was Jenny Seagrove there was a couple of really good actors in it. Jenny Seagrove was one who's a, you know, a very well-known film actress, now a theatre actor, you know. and she was fantastically supportive, and I was very young, you know, I think I was
Yeah.
23 or something, I don't know. And so that was Hamlet. But doing that, starting that with and learning Shakespeare that way, just from an emotional point of view, of playing the emotion and sustaining an emotion,
Yeah.
etc., was a great training. And I felt I trained at arts, and then I went and did my first Shakespeare play. You know, I'd done a couple of musicals, but I went to do my first Shakespeare play, and I was like back at college. And then I went on and did a couple of other things, and Macbeth was one of them, where I did Macbeth, and I was learning doing that. Every director has their own way of doing it, and it was just a gift to me. I didn't ever think I'd ever do it, and I always wanted to do it, but I didn't ever think I ever would, and I've been fortunate to do a few now.
Absolutely. Now we're going to move on to a West End. Jersey Boys.
Yeah.
How much fun was
Great show.
that? Like, wow.
It was. I mean, I'm still, you know, really great mates with the other guys the other Jersey Boys. You know, the original cast. We had a fantastic sort of vibe between us, friendship. You know, we built a friendship, and we regularly have Zoom meetings and chat and meet whenever we can.
Lovely.
And it was an amazing experience.
Yeah.
It wasn't particularly fun for me at the beginning, I have to say. It was a lot of responsibility. The character I played, Tommy DeVito, he's like the engine of the show. So he asks. There's many different sorts of script, but often, you know, in a script there are different types of script. One being you instigate everything, you ask the questions, you lead the conversation. Another one being you respond to the person who's asked the question, etc. Now, one is obviously easier to remember because you remember the answers to questions. And the other one is always moving on the piece, always being the engine. And that's what Tommy DeVito is in Jersey Boys. It was a massive amount of script, and because it was an American production and it came over to London, it was the first time it left America, and it'd been on tour in several productions in America. It's a very specific sense of humor, and English and other countries don't necessarily share the same sense of humor. And there are quite a few moments in it where at the beginning there were a little bit of a battle to you know, they were very much so, no, if you lift your eyebrow on this line and point to the audience on that point and pause here, they will laugh. And I was like, okay, they won't. I'm inside, I know they won't. Tell me exactly what to do and tell me if I'm playing exactly as you want, and then we'll see. And so they were like, okay, do this, and then I did that, and some of those moments worked, but quite a large amount of them didn't. So we went through a massive process of changing lines. And on the opening night, when the day we first went in front of a paying audience, they changed about 18 lines in my first 10 minutes, I'd say. Oh, no. And I got those line changes just before the half. And in the half, obviously, you're getting ready, putting your mic on, I have time to learn lines. So we went out, and Tommy DeVito comes up and he starts speaking straight away. You know, he walks down, and the first dialogue's Tommy. And my first line was the same. My second was the same. My third had changed. My fourth was the same as the original. My fifth and sixth were different. 10th line was different. Then he sings a little bit. Then he goes into another. So it was, my head was an absolute mess. I still to this day don't know how I managed to get through it. And it was like that. So many changes, so many dialogue changes in the beginning. So it was a massive challenge. Now, but it's still, having said that, even though it was a big ask, those changes that went in, now it's such, and they're just about to do another production of it. It's a stunning show. That's you know, it's so brilliantly directed by, you know, whoever directed this time. I don't know if it's Des McAnuff or not, but certainly the production that we did, the original, was incredibly well guided by Des McAnuff, very cinematic. He, you know, often the characters have their back to the audience, and it's just very cinematic. It was like watching at times a film, and it was so slick with the choreography, and it was just a fantastic piece of theatre.
Yeah, iconic
Not
songs.
iconic songs as well. Yeah, totally. I mean, when they first asked, said, we'd like, would you like to go up and audition for Jersey Boys? I thought, what's Jersey Boys? No idea what Jersey Boys. And so I was doing a musical that had been written for me, which I was really blessed for. It's called Moon Landing, and I just loved it. And I was doing it at the time. And one of the cast turned around and says, "I think it's a strip group. Is it like the Chippendales, the Jersey Boys? Are they asking you to go and take your shirt off?" And I was like, I don't know. Oh. So it was for me, it was a total unknown quantity. I was auditioning for Bob Gaudio when I wasn't auditioning for Tommy DeVito at all, because I play piano badly, but I play piano. And so Bob Gaudio plays piano. So I was up for that, which obviously Stephen Ashfield did. And I walked into the audition having learned the three scenes that they'd given us, 5 scenes or whatever, and a couple of songs. And I walked in, and the American casting director, Jill Green's the British casting director, and it was in conjunction with an American casting director. She went, "Oh no, you're not a Bob. You're a Tommy. Can you take this script and go out and have a look at it and come back in 10 minutes?" So basically, the opening night was like my audition. Forget that script, do this one. So it was a fantastic experience, but it started incredibly challenging. But once it settled down, I had a ball. We all had a ball. It was a fantastic job.
Yeah. Another thing, the baker in Into the Woods, which is another iconic role.
Yeah. That's great.
Sondheim.
Yeah, Sondheim's fantastic. It's obviously, as everyone says, is the Shakespeare of musical theatre. It's wonderful. I mean, I have to say, Into the Woods was my least favourite of the Sondheims that I've done. However brilliant it is, and it really is, and I grew to love it. Yeah. But it was my least favourite when I started. But it's fantastic. It's fantastic. I did that at Derby Playhouse. With Karen Hebden, who's a fantastic director. I did about 5 or 6 things there. In fact, one of them was Macduff in Macbeth. I did Macbeth up there as well. It's great, but I love Sondheim stuff. I mean, who doesn't? What musical theatre actor doesn't want to do Sondheim?
I know, literally. And again, iconic roles. Joseph.
Yeah.
Just listing them off now.
But I wasn't. I was never Joseph. I was Asher. So I was the understudy to Joseph. But I went in the second cast. I didn't audition for the first cast, but I went in for the second cast to take over from Philip Schofield when he got married for his honeymoon. So I went in as that for that thing. And obviously I did that, which was incredible. I mean, it was an incredible experience. And with Joseph, I know that with Jason Donovan, when he did the production, I was chatting to, I think it was Anthony Van Lass that was telling me that there was so much screaming, because he was such a pop star at the time. There was so much screaming, when he came on, people screaming his name out, etc. They didn't want to disrupt the show with that, so they put, I think it's Any Dream Will Do. I think is the first song. They put that. Is it any? I close my eyes. I think it's Any Dream Will Do. Whatever. They put it at the very, very, very beginning. So he comes down on this sort of floating in on this cloud, and he stood on this sort of this bit of stage, just so the audiences can burn themselves out with their scream, or all the fans could burn themselves out before the show starts.
Yeah.
So he would do a song before the show. But for the understudy, when the understudy went on, and thankfully I didn't have this, because I was billed when I went on. They knew that it was good. My first performance was that. They knew it wasn't going to be Philip Schofield, but Peter Bishop, who was the first understudy, who understudied Jason, when he went on for that, he was telling me, like, people would boo, and they would, because he wasn't Jason Donovan, so people would be so disappointed that all of a sudden it's somebody else. So it was a useful useful sort of vehicle for Jason doing that first song. The understudy was a bit of a nightmare.
Awful. I don't get people complain about that sort of thing. It's you see who you see, and everyone's talented who's in the role.
Yeah, it's part of the gig. I mean, understudying is. I mean, it's a tough beat. It's not as difficult as swinging. I'm like, being a swing in a show. I've never done that. I remember once on Les Mis, there was so many people off, and they just said, you know, Glenn, can you do 2 or 3 lines in this thing? I've never been so scared in my life. Just to come on and do 1 line as a sailor, you know, or a new line in the Thenardier. I mean, I'm so not cut out for that.
Yeah.
Swings for me are I don't know how they do it. They're the best around.
They are incredible. So then we'll just might as well slide down to a role that I don't think anyone really knows you've played. Jesus in Jesus Christ Superstar. What's all that about?
Yeah. Again, I was, you know, it's one of those things that role, because I've always had long hair. You know, as a kid I had long, and you know, I've only ever been made to cut my hair for work. Like whenever I'm not working, I just let my hair grow. And so for that reason, all the time when I first went to college, when I first started to train, everyone said, "Oh, you're going to play Jesus. You're going to play Jesus. You're going to play Jesus." And I auditioned for it loads of times, and nobody was interested in me playing Jesus ever, because I sounded more like Judas, like, you know, the way my voice worked then. You know, I always wanted to play Judas. I didn't ever want to play Jesus at all. But when it actually came down to it, and I got, you know, I got into that production, it was just, I just absolutely loved it, and it's been incredibly good to me, that role.
Played him all over the place, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, I've played him lots of short stints. Like I did in London, I did him for like 7 months or something. I didn't do it again for like 4 or 5 years. Then I did it for 2 months on a tour. My understudy Lee Rhodes was taken. He was my understudy in town, and he went on to do the tour, and he was taken ill, and they asked me if I would step in.
Yeah.
So I stepped in for a couple of months, I think, and then I didn't do it again for a year or so, and then randomly I auditioned for the film. I was just like a, you know, packing peanut.
Yeah.
Well, like, you know, nobody thought it was going to go to a West End, you know, West End Wendy, and you know, basic musical theatre actor. No one ever thought that the film would do that. No. You know, Antonio Banderas had done Che Guevara in the film with Madonna. They thought that Jesus the second time would be that, because it was coming up to the millennium. So we just thought we were auditioning for just to fill the day up, really. You know, we didn't, and nobody thought it was going to go to one of us. And it, you know, I was very blessed, thanks to, you know, there were champions for me, like David Grinrod. I think, you know, he was very, you know, was very supportive, and you know, he's a fantastic casting director. And he's not just a casting director, David, though. He's been around, he knows the industry inside and out, you know, upside down, backwards and forwards. And he's you know, he was on my side. So, you know, having those fantastic, you know, people that, unless you're really in the industry, you don't know who they are, but they're, you know, they're the rocks that's, you know, that's kind of make the theatre what it is, really, you know, with their years of experience working with Cameron and Lloyd Webber and stuff. So I was just incredibly fortunate, and I didn't think for 1 second, not for 1 second, I would get that role.
Yeah, and then you did, and everyone now knows you as Jesus.
Yeah, I guess. Again, it's funny, because I don't know that. I don't see that, because when I walk into a room, no one says, "Oh, you're the person that played Jesus."
Oh my God, it's Jesus! Yeah.
Yeah, they don't. They just go, "Hi."
Hi.
So when people say, you know, people know you as that, I don't. It's a weird. I don't know that.
No, but I think if you were to put your face on many people's screens, people would know.
Yeah, I don't know, because people don't share that with me. I don't know that in my general life, you know. So
yeah,
it's interesting. It's just a role that's been incredibly good to me.
Absolutely.
And I've done it the best I can.
You must have worked with all sorts of people as well in other roles in these times you've played Jesus.
Yeah, it's been interesting.
Yeah, out of all the Judases and Herods and everyone, you just had quite a bunch. Yeah. So now I think it's time to move on to the 5 fans questions that we move down to. So the first question is from Trevor, and Trevor asks, if you forget a line on stage, what do you do?
Um, what do you do?
Good question.
You know, who knows? Who knows? Because if you forget a line on stage, the last thing you're doing is thinking. That's the problem.
This is true.
Your brain's all over the place. What do you do? I think the best, what I do now, because it never happened to me, and then it happened to me. And once it's happened once in a position where it's forever with you, forever with you. And now I stop thinking, I stop worrying about it, and I just go, and it generally comes back. Just relax.
Take a
Because it's
breath.
only tension and lack of focus, whatever, tiredness, that makes those things happen. But my first experience of losing my lines, my words, was so massive that I honestly have never forgotten it. Every day I go on stage, I still think about it, and it's 25 years ago. I was playing Simon in Superstar, and my father had just died. My mother had just died. My mum and dad both died during the first me playing in Superstar, and my mum had just died, and I was with her and all that when she died, and I came back a week later, after 2 weeks later after the funeral or whatever, and my younger brother, who's a really top sound engineer in the West End, called Scott Carter, he's like #1 sound on Book of Mormon at the moment when it opens again. He's great sound engineer, and I got him a job when he was first starting out as sound number 3, just changing mic packs and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was stood there about to go on stage and sing Simon's song. And I was stood at the back of the stage, and I just turned around to Scott and said, "You behave well, don't let me down, go for it." And I walked on stage, and I gave myself my sort of 20 seconds of just focusing my head.
Yeah.
And all I could think, I knew my brain, I couldn't remember the tune. I could not remember the tune of the song. I was like, and it's so simple. And I couldn't remember it. I was so exhausted, and a bit emotionally challenged, obviously, because of my mum. And I stood at the side of the stage, and I thought, I don't know the tune. I can't remember the tune. I can't remember the tune. So I thought, okay, it'll come back. So Simon goes on, and I went on, and the intro started, and I thought, I just can't remember. I just can't remember the words or the tune now. What's the words? So I just started, and instead, and so the intro happens, which is quite a big sort of raucous intro with all the cast on the stage and singing and everything. And I thought, I can't remember it. I shouldn't have been working. I should have added a couple of days off after the funeral and come back. Yeah. And I couldn't remember the tune. So instead of singing words, I just went, I just started to scat.
Fair enough.
And no one really listened. So I noticed that then, actually, because we were 6 or 8 months into the show, but the ensemble weren't really listening to me. The band weren't really listening to me. They only noticed that I'd gone wrong. I mean, I knew straight away, obviously, but they'd only noticed I'd gone wrong when Simon does this little sort of lick, bring it into the chorus, which is, "Christ, you know I love you. Did you see how I did that bit?" And I didn't do it because I didn't know where I was. And I remember looking down, and by this time I'm ghostly white, sweating, looking down at the audience for somebody to help me. And I just looked around, and I saw the entire cast suddenly looking up and looking, thinking,
"Uh-oh,
what's happening?" And I turned the song. Simon's song's only about 2 minutes, 50 seconds, something like that. I think it ran about 6.5 minutes. Nobody knew how to get out of it. We didn't know how to stop. The song just went on, and I looked at Simon Lee, who I love, was a fantastic musical director. He was just behind me, behind a curtain, because I was high rising, and I literally was so desperate. I still couldn't remember it going into the second verse, and I looked through the curtain, and he just turned around to me and went, "You!" It just screamed at me. He didn't help because everyone was lost. He was lost. He didn't have the book in front of him because he's such a genius. So he doesn't read the music anymore. When he's in his head, he lives it, And I really royally messed up. And I really seriously messed up, and I think it was about 6.5 minutes for a 2-minute 40-second song, and I've never in my life forgotten it. In fact, it's the worst. Tony Head, who's somebody else I did chess with, he had a similar moment, but it wasn't quite as bad as mine.
Oh,
and I've never forgotten it. Every time I go on stage, every single time, Jersey Boys, Jesus, Floyd Collie, you name it, I always have that in my head, and I always go, calm down, concentrate,
yeah.
calm down, just so now I try and I don't stress anymore. I just let it go, and if it happens, it happens.
Yeah,
But it's very hard to let go of. Very hard to let go of.
And Georgia has asked, did you know how popular the Jesus Christ Superstar film was going to be when you were filming it?
I don't even know if it is I don't even know if it is. Because I've got a copy of it. I've seen it twice. And the rest of the time, I've just been to get a job. Yeah, I've only seen. I didn't like watching. I didn't like watching myself. I saw it in the premiere, and I watched it once with someone on DVD, and I just felt it
must be weird.
It was only my second film, and it was my first musical. I say only my second film. I've only done 4. Do you know what I mean? But it was my second film. But it was such a big role, so much screen time, that I just remember. I can look at that, and I can still vividly remember, the scenes where we shot on the first day, and I look at those and I think, oh, somebody shoot him. I wish we'd done a week's filming and then I could start again, because then by that time I'd watched the rushes and I could see what was too big and too, what was working or what wasn't. But again, it's everything is a learning process. Everything is a learning process. Everything, every day. If you stop learning, quit.
Well, yeah, that is true.
Don't do it. If you think you know everything, don't do it.
Absolutely. Your next fan question is from Olivia, and Olivia's asked, what is your favorite song in Jesus Christ Superstar? There's a lot of Jesus Christ Superstar questions going on here.
I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. For me, it has to be Gethsemane, only because it's not because it's Jesus' song and it's the song that I sing and I loved singing it. Yes, because it did all of those things. I love singing it. It's a massive challenge. But I personally, my own personal opinion is it's the greatest song ever written for a leading man to sing in a musical.
I absolutely adore it.
You'd have a million people saying, no, Sondheim's this and My Boy Bill that, but Gethsemane for me, it's a massive vocal challenge every single day. You can't step off it. You have to be right on it every day. The content, the length of it, how hard it is to sustain it. It's just a massive emotional journey. It's the only song I've ever sung like that, and I've never heard or come across another song like that. Mm. I mean, Pity the Child was incredible in, as a journey, as an emotional journey and a vocal journey in chess, but there's nothing quite like Gethsemane. I think it's not only the best song there's huge of commercial pop, the catchy songs in Jesus Christ Superstar that Judas sings, all the amazing songs that Judas has.
There is.
But I just personally think that the best song in that show has to be the best song that's been ever written for a leading man. I would agree with you.
Absolutely. Which quite leads us into the next question. Sophie's asked, how vocally challenging did you find Jesus?
To say that I'm anal when it comes to singing is an understatement, because I warm up for 2 hours a day, every day. And I hydrate myself in the morning. I'll tell you why. There's an actor, singer. He's a classically trained singer in the West End called Philip Griffiths. And Philip's in the ensemble. I think he's the longest serving. I'm sure he's not on just ensemble. I mean, he has roles under his name. I'm not sure, but Philip is quite possibly the greatest technician vocally I've ever heard. Consistent, beautiful singing. And I was in chess with him, and it was my first West End chess. And one day he just said to me, he said, Glenn, when you get home at night, do you, when you get home at night, do you find your voice is exhausted, or have you got lots of miles left in it? And I said, oh, no, I sing so well when I get home, really, like I feel really relaxed. And he just turned to me, looked at me, says, you're not warmed up enough. I can hear it in your voice. You're not warmed up enough. And I said, why, how do you mean? I did like a 15, 20-minute warm up and the show warm up. He says, your voice needs warming up more than that. Yeah, I can hear it in your voice. This is what I suggest you do. And he said to me, get up in the morning, hydrate. I mean, drink enough water so that when you go to the loo, you're basically peeing clear water. So you're fully hydrated. It'll take your time, drink slowly. Don't do anything for the first couple of hours. Then warm up. Hum slowly, gently, warm up for half an hour, 40 minutes. Then just take a break, cup of tea, have the afternoon, and then warm up again in the afternoon, and then do your show warm up. And warming up in the morning and hydrating myself properly changed my voice. It completely changed it. I went from sounding like I should be singing Judas to being able to sing like really pure, high, long notes. And it's not like Mary Hammond hadn't told me the same thing, but I just hadn't listened,
Yeah.
So singing Jesus is a challenge, but it's less of a challenge now than it was when I started.
Absolutely.
Just because I've learned how to sing it. And it's like anything, don't expect to do your best work first day out. You have to invest in singing stuff in, working what works for your voice. I've worked with singers that don't warm up at all, and they sound unbelievably good.
Wow.
I just don't. I have to do the work. So I warm up for about 2 hours a day, every day before a performance. Every single performance I've done 2 hours, whether it's even an audition. In my auditions at 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm up at five, hydrating, warming myself up slowly, warm up for 2 hours, then I'll go do an audition. So preparation is everything. And singing Jesus is always a challenge because it's so exposed. Unlike Judas, which has tons of music behind you all the time, big rock sounds, and if your voice is a bit wavery or cracks a little bit, it's all part of the style of that character. Not everybody sings it like that, and some people are beautiful singers and his voice wouldn't even know how to crack. But it's a sort of role that it adds to its emotional content when that happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Jesus is very different in the sense that every time Jesus sings, certainly at the beginning, everyone stops and looks at him and the music disappears.
Yeah.
So it's an incredibly exposed part, which is why lots of people who've played Jesus have struggled with it. Not struggled with the singing, but struggled with that loud noise, and everybody's suddenly looking at you, and then you're singing something very light and high and floaty, and it's quite exposing. So preparation for everything. It's always challenging, but it's not so challenging now as it used to be.
Yeah, no. And your last fan's question is from Emily, and Emily has asked, which has been your favorite role to play so far?
Wow. I would never play. I would quit if I didn't enjoy what I was doing. So I've loved every single role, every single one. Loved Jesus, loved Tommy DeVito beyond, even though it was a very tough beginning. Absolutely loved it. But I think the role I've enjoyed more than anything is because the style of the music, the characterization, the way it was directed and put together was Floyd Collins in Floyd Collins, I think, without question. Most people won't even know what Floyd Collins is, but it's I just loved that story, and I loved the cast that I did it with, and I just loved the songs in it. It's bluegrass, hillbilly music. We had harmonica players and fiddle players, and it was just fantastic music. I just absolutely loved every second of it. And I did it. I think I earned about £35 for 3 months because we were doing it at Southwark Playhouse. And if I remember right, I can't remember if any of us got paid. Maybe we did. I can't remember, because I've done roles. I've done lots of work for nothing, in the fringes and stuff, because it's just a chance to get to do roles that you wouldn't normally get. But Floyd Collins, I think, I just loved it. And I loved, the guy that played my brother Gareth Chart, and Robin North, and it was just fantastic. I loved it, and anyone who saw it, I think it was a particularly good production.
So the little last thing we're going to do today is a quiz on how well you know Jesus Christ Superstar. So you've done it enough times, you might get some of these right.
All I do is think about myself.
Maybe not the first time, but we'll get there. So the first question is really, really difficult. How many tracks are in your film cast soundtrack? How many tracks are in the 2000 film cast soundtrack?
It's going to be a wild guess. 27.
There's 18 in your soundtrack.
You have no idea. I have absolutely no idea.
I feel like some of them have disappeared out of there because Down for All Time's not on there. Don't know where it is. We'll find it.
Yeah, is it not? Is Down for All Time not on there?
I'm not sure it's on the CD.
Okay, that's interesting. And also, yeah, maybe. And some of the, because I've done like I think 3 or 4 different albums of Superstar, so I'm not really sure. Like a Simon on one with Alice Cooper and Steve Balsamo's Jesus and stuff, and
absolutely.
like this, some of the priest things aren't there sometimes, and they are others. But I don't know. I'm terrible at things like this. So,
that's probably your hardest question. Your second question is the lyric, and it's not your lyric. The lyric is, "I've been living to see you."
I've been living to see you, trying to see you, but it shouldn't be like this. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I was far too busy into my character at that moment, getting beaten.
Absolutely, being all Jesus-y. This next question, again, I'm trying not to give you Jesus because I think you're going to know it too well. So I've given you, what is the very last word sung by Judas in Act 1? I can give you multiple choice if you need.
Very last, gosh. I've done Superstar with Act 1 in 2 different places. So let me just think which one. You'd be thinking of the film, won't you? So that's, you know what?
Do you want multiple choice?
Is it Damned for All Time? It's Damned for All Time, isn't it?
Yeah.
On Thursday night, you'll find him where you want him. Far from the crowd. I can't remember there. Far from the crowd. It's killing me. I don't know. I know. Yeah, I can't think of it. But that's the bit, isn't it?
Yes, Gethsemane is the last word sung.
Oh, that's right.
From the crowd in the garden.
What an idiot.
Gethsemane. Question number 4. What song is reprised during the first part of the arrest?
Nope, lost you. Sorry, I've got terrible connection here. Could you just start that question again?
The question is, what song is reprised during the first part of the arrest? So you're getting arrested. What are they singing? Bearing in mind they're all waking up.
Be my Isaac and heart. Isn't it the lepers?
No. You're getting arrested, so they're waking up behind you. What are they singing?
Oh, What's the Buzz?
Yes. And your last one, I don't know where this question came from. It's just sort of here. What would be an alternate title for Gethsemane? What is the sometimes there in brackets beside the
I Only Want to Say?
Yes. And then
I don't know why it's that. I don't know why it's that.
I don't know what the point in that is.
I've never understood what. I understand. I Only Want to Say is the first line of it, but
why would you call it that? I wouldn't.
Why would you call it that?
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't either. I mean, the lyric
call
that's
it
repeated,
why.
Yeah, but the lyric that's repeated the most in it is either I want to know or I have to know.
Yeah, that would be more.
I only want to say, yeah, bizarre. Yeah,
I've never. I want to do is just remind everyone that as much as we're here just having a little chat, we're also trying to raise a little bit of money for acting for others. So if anyone wants to jump down there, there'll be a link in the description because it's a really good cause. And seems as we're locked down for even longer now, we're going to need some more donations in because people really do need the support. And the second thing, just to check my social medias, which will also be in the description, to see who I'm going to be interviewing next, because there's always someone new. And apart from that,
who are you going to be next?
I don't know. If I knew, I'd
tell you. Next? I want to know.
He only wants to know. but I don't even know yet. So we'll figure that one out soon. But apart from that, I want to thank you so much for coming in, Glenn. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you.
All right, mate. Nice. It's a pleasure. You did Kerry Ellis, didn't you? Was Kerry Ellis your last one?
Yes, we had Kerry Ellis last
Yeah,
time.
she was fab.
She's so lovely.
Yeah, I did West End Men with Kerry. Yeah, she's fab. She knows her stuff, and she's got a great voice. She's
Well, who
she's
do you
amazing.
think we should interview next then? Who do you think's up next?
Wow, there's a question. Who do I think? You know what? You should interview Stephen Ashfield.
I would love to.
Do you know Stephen Ashfield? Stephen Ashfield. Write to him. Say Glenn says you have to do an interview.
I will,
because he's a really nice guy. He's very knowledgeable. He's just come back to England. He was on Broadway for a long time. Yeah, you know, he's done some interesting stuff. The Boy George thing, and Book of Mormon, and you know, and obviously Jersey Boys, and he did that for a while. He's an Olivia Award-winning actor. He's a good guy. I'll put a word in for you.
Thank you. But apart from that, this is the end of the episode. So I'll see you all in the next one, everyone.